Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Courtside Investor podcast. I'm your host, the Card Boss, and we are just one or two more games away from determining the next NBA champion. Oklahoma City Thunders leads the Indiana Pacers 3-2, and this has been crazy series. All right, that's one of the more exciting series I've watched in recent years. Right, the games are just simply amazing, and like I mentioned in my previous videos, I'm thoroughly impressed with SGA. Okay, I've seriously underrated him in the past. I knew OKC was a good team last year, but this year they were amazing, and his steals carrying his team into the NBA Finals. I know J-Dub did very well this last game. I think his start was actually important to them winning Game 5, but SGA is still the man. All right, so as I said, we're just a couple of games away from technically the end of the season and the start of the offseason, which means there's NBA draft and then go through the free agency and then maybe a couple of months before the new season begins. And what does that mean for the NBA hobby? Okay, so typically in the past offseason, generally card prices will take a little bit of a rest. Okay, when I say rest means it does come down a little bit. In most cases, is of course due to lack of activity in the season because everybody's on a break, but also the attention shifts to football. Okay, and of course we have the Nationals that's coming up, and a lot of attention goes into football to the start of the season in September before the NBA actually begins in October. So typically you will see card prices show a bit of a decline between now to August, early September, and then start to pick up again in September. But not all players are affected because there will be some players who continue to have interest during this period, especially depends on certain free agent activities that happen typically in the first couple of weeks of July. Okay, so right now we're sitting towards the end of June. It's still not over. The NBA draft still will provide some action as well as the first 2 weeks of free agency, and then maybe it'll tend to slow down. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about 10 active players that we should be watching and what you should do with regards to each of these players, in my opinion. Right. So again, this is not real investment advice. This is my thoughts on where I think certain card prices of these players will land during this off-season leading to next year, and perhaps my advice on what you may want to do or what you should not be doing. Okay, so I'm going to touch on first 4 players which I feel there's not many things can happen. Like these 4 guys, nothing's going to happen despite whatever news that you read, despite whatever transactions that's going to happen. I think that the card prices for these players are going to maintain throughout this period. It may drop a little bit, they may go up a little bit, but not to a point whereby you should buy or you should sell your entire portfolio if you have any of these guys, right? And the first one is Luka. Hey, you may be surprised, right? Luka's prices has been always up and up in the past few seasons. And, last year when he made the finals, his card prices were on real high point. Okay. Not as high as it was, in terms of percentage wise during the pandemic, but it was pretty high. And it came down a little bit during the start of the season. His performance was okay. There was some rejuvenation during when he joined the Lakers, but since then, Lakers got bounced and then his card prices kind of fell a bit flat. And I think that a lot of people right now are actually waiting for Luka in Lakers uniform cards, especially on the high-end sets like Immaculate, Flawless, etc. Okay, so the Dallas cards, the flawless RP, not the RPAs, but the flawless auto patches in the steel and the Dallas uniforms are still, a bit lukewarm. People are not as high on that as what you used to in the past. So I think people are just waiting for the newer stuff to come. And because of that, I think Luka's cards are going to be a bit flat in this off season. Next up is Giannis. Okay, so there's a lot of news about Giannis. Going to move to a new team. Is he going to New York? Is he going to Toronto? Okay, but I think regardless of whether he does move or he don't move, or whether or not he gets another big trade that comes to Milwaukee, which I seriously doubt so. They don't have the tools to do so. But regardless, I think the Giannis cards are just going to maintain flat. And his cards has actually been on the decline, ever since he's won the championship a couple of years back. And, he has his fan following, but it just doesn't have enough push compared to all the other exciting players that we have currently in today's league and the new guys that's coming in. Compare him to like Wemby, right? Even Wemby's, still new, not as successful as Giannis, but the fan following on Wemby is just so much greater compared to Giannis, to push the prices of cards to another level. So this offseason, regardless whether, Giannis has a new team or not, I think his prices are going to be a bit flat. So if you're having any of these cards, it's fine to hold. And, if you want to buy into it, it's fine to buy, but you're not going to see any uptick in his prices or significant downticks for that matter. All right. Next one, you may be surprised as well. Stephen Curry, right? Stephen Curry's cards really went on a bit of a yo-yo in the past 1 year. After the Olympics last year, there was a huge demand for his cards. Obviously, right? He was a star during the Olympics last year, and the Warriors didn't really do much in the early of the season. They were kind of like just treading. And then when they got Jimmy Butler in the mid-season trade, that's when things start to ramp up. And people were very optimistic that they could really make a lot of noise in this postseason. And Curry's cards really flew, towards the end of this season. But of course, injury came. The Warriors couldn't match up well. They beat the Rockets, but in round 2, they just don't have the tools to win the next round. So unfortunately, Curry's cards did take a little bit of hit, but his cards are always popular. So, you don't see a sharp decline on his cards. Maybe a few percentage points down here and there. But he has a lot of staples in the market, right? His flawless patch autos are always great. It's always a good hold. They're expensive, but those are the kind of cards that actually hold value over time. Obviously, his big chase cards is his rookie RPAs and things like that. Those are definitely grails, right? But if you're just buying good Curry cards, his auto patch cards, from bigger sets, nice looking patches especially, you're not gonna do wrong, but you're not gonna do great either because there's just so many around. Okay. Now the next player that I think that it has fallen a bit, but it's going to be a bit flat at the moment, and there's a reason for that, and that's Ja Morant. Okay, now people are completely, for some reason, right, don't like Ja Morant at this point. Okay, maybe it's his news, maybe it's the team, maybe his play, the injuries. Okay, his cards definitely took a big tumble after they got knocked out by OKC in the playoffs. Some cards, the color parallels especially, dropped by 40%. Very huge drop. Okay, obviously his RPAs and stuff are kind of still stable, maybe down by about like 20% or so. But I don't think that there is a lot of more room for Ja's cards to free fall. The Desmond Bain trade yesterday to my Orlando Magic, it's awesome for Orlando. It also gives a bit more optimism for Memphis, right? A lot more plays for them to make depending on how they want to retool the team around Ja and Jaren Jackson Jr. So, and because of that, there is a bunch of opportunities for Memphis to try to make certain changes. And I think, of course, Ja and Triple J is going to be the center of that. And therefore, I do believe that where the prices we see for Ja's cards today, it's going to be where it's going to be at, to the start of the season, barring any big major transaction. If what I mentioned before, if let's say for some reason, Giannis ends up in Memphis, I have no clue how that would happen. That maybe will move the needle. Okay, but again, I think the numbers wise, it's not really technically possible for that to happen. Okay. So those are 4 players that I think that it's going to be flat in this off season. So it's, if you're going to buy into them, it's not going to move, nor it's going to drop either way. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about 3 players that's definitely, I think you should definitely avoid in this offseason. And the first one is obviously Jason Tatum, right? He's going to be injured. He's going to be out for an entire year. I think his prices are continue to slide down because of the non-activity, and it depends on what Boston is going to do as well in this coming off season. They're well into the second apron. Money is going to be a big issue. There are talks of moving Drew Holiday, breaking up the team, Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, whatever, right? And there is a big chance that when Tatum comes back the following season, after he recovers from his injury, it's going to be a completely different Boston Celtics team, not the one that they won a championship just 1 year ago. So card prices wise, for Tatum's an awesome player, but it's very his card prices are very dependent on how Boston as a team actually performs. So that's not where I want to park my money now. You may see like, hey, Tatum's cards are falling, his RPAs are well affordable now. If you love Tatum, sure, go ahead, right? But from the financial perspective for the next 1 year, you're gonna start to see some red. Okay. Again, depends on what Boston actually does, in this offseason and, going towards the next season. So I wouldn't want to touch Tatum in the next couple of months until you have some real clarity on what Boston is actually doing. Okay. Now, the next player that I think that you should avoid is Kevin Durant, right? Kevin Durant is an awesome player. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a bucket getter. He's going to make a difference in any team that he potentially going to join in this offseason, right? There's a lot of rumors him going around to Minnesota. Where else? I think Miami's out to the Spurs. Wherever he's going to go, he's definitely going to make a difference. And the thing is this, he's going to make a difference to the team, and he's likely going to make a difference to the players or the card prices for the players on that team, right? As opposed to his own card prices. So, example, if he's going to join the Spurs, I believe he's going to, move the needle a bit for Wembanyama. If he's going to join Minnesota, it's obviously going to move the needle for Anthony Edwards, but it's not going to make any changes for Kevin Durant. So, if you're thinking that Kevin Durant's cards are gonna skyrocket the moment he joins any of these teams, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think this is gonna be a bit different from the Anthony Davis case that we saw a couple of years back during the pandemic when New Orleans traded Davis to the Lakers. Okay, everybody could see that from a mile coming, and everybody put money early into Davis cards. Back then was maybe his 2012 Prism Silvers, PSA 10s. I remember buying those for about like 100, maybe it was like 350, I think. Back then, it was a long time ago, and the prices obviously escalated to thousands, 1,500, 1,800. Now, of course, those were the crazy times, right? But the point was, people knew that Davis was going to change teams, and in this case, people know that Durant's going to go to a new team. But I wouldn't buy any of his cards now. He's reaching towards the end of his career. No doubt that he has achieved all of that, and his cards are done in abundance. So if you're starting to pick up his cards now, there's just so many around. Okay, as compared to, let's say, for example, if this was a Luka, a lot of people are holding on to the Lukas, right? Versus Kevin Durant, there's always so many Kevin Durant cards out in the market. Give anything you want, one-on-ones, flawless auto patches, so many, right? So I wouldn't come near Kevin Durant. The last one that I don't think should touch, especially after the conclusion of the NBA Finals, is Tyrese Halliburton. Okay, his story, it's a bit of a mix for me. Okay, I was high on Tyrese last year. Pacers did went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Tyrese joined the US Olympics. No doubt he didn't play, and I had strong optimism about the Pacers coming to this year. But the first half of the year didn't really do much. Okay, of course, a lot of eyes were shifted towards the other players, and Tyrese cards actually went down. I lost quite a fair bit. Even I had good stuff. I had flawless RPAs. I had one-of-one autos. I think I shared some in my previous videos, but they didn't do well. Of course, who's to know that they went all the way to the finals, and his cards are setting records everywhere. Okay, his black one-on-one prism, his gold prisms. Believe he has a Logo Man sale recently as well. So lots and lots of big numbers Tyrese has been showing for his cards. But unless you're a true Tyrese collector, Pacers collector, there's only one way for his cards to go from here. Now, even if they win, to be honest, right? So even if they win, coming off season, his prices are gonna definitely get a correction. Okay. Now, if you're gonna buy the one-on-one black and you pay a few $100,000 or $100,000 for it, you can hold on to it. It's not gonna make any difference, right? It's not gonna be resold because you have the only copy. But the other big cards, the gold prisms and whatever others, that's the big RPAs has been selling. I think that's gonna get a big correction. So that's a player that I wouldn't want to touch as early of this offseason. Maybe if it comes down to a point whereby if they actually win the championship and come back on game 6 and 7, maybe you may want to reconsider before the start of the season if there's a chance for them to repeat. But I don't think so. Pacers did a good run this year. They had everything working for it. I mentioned my podcast with Eric from Hong Kong that it's somehow my gut feeling that, Tyrese and the Pacers are going to pull off some miracle wins, not once, but twice, 3 or 4 times this year. It's insane. Okay. Hard to believe that they're going to do it again next season. So I wouldn't touch Tyrese cards. In fact, I would recommend to stay away. All right. So coming back to the top 3 players, active players that I feel that it's worth putting your money in this off season. Okay. It's going to come down a little bit for sure. I think there's certain card prices are going to drop a couple of percentage points, but I think it's going to rebound really quickly. The interest of these players is going to rebound quite quick into the offseason. So the moment you see a bit of a slight dip and the moment the price is right, I believe I should pounce on these 3 player cards. Okay. The first one, LeBron James. Okay. He's in his 20-something season, right? He's still a machine going forward. He is one of the GOATs in a sense, right? Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. Okay. There is no wrong buying his cards. And there were a lot of people who didn't like LeBron cards in early of this season. Okay, of course that sentiment changed again when Luka joined the Lakers. Okay, and his cards actually did as well improve in terms of value, improve in terms of demand. But this demand was always been there, right? Given his history, given his talent, given who he is, his popularity, his card prices has always been stable, and this is continued to go to trend upwards. Kobe is getting a good run in this last 6 months. I just feel that LeBron's gonna just enjoy something similar as well, regardless of how the next season plays out. The Lakers somehow retool, get better, does further deeper into the playoffs, all the sweeter. Okay, but LeBron's cards in this offseason, don't expect a huge dip. Okay, expect continuous increments. So goodbye. Decent cards. Okay, again, I'm recommending only buy the good stuff. It doesn't mean that you just go and buy some base cards here and there, some number to 299 parallels of a random 20th, 15th year, 18th year, whatever. No, just the good stuff. Talking about the good stuff. Okay. Next player, Anthony Edwards. I mentioned earlier about Kevin Durant joining Minnesota. If he actually does join Minnesota, that's gonna really lift Anthony Edwards' cards really high. His cards actually was pretty strong, towards the end of last year and going to this season. There were ups and downs during the season, but this off season, he again took Minnesota to another level, but it just couldn't get past SGA. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, he has many more years to go, and I think that if you see some correction in his cards, I think it's just going to be a brief, temporary correction, and his cards has a lot more room to move up. Okay, so if you're expecting this offseason his cards price is going to drop by 20-30%, like a lot of other players are, I seriously don't think so, especially on his better cards. Okay, last player, the player been talked in the start of this video, SGA himself. Okay, now let me talk about this thing. SGA's cards been running hot, really hot throughout the entire season. Okay, in fact, from the start of the season up to the right till the conference finals. Okay, really skyrocketing and rocket speed. Okay, now we get to the finals. Obviously, he's got his MVP. He's like gonna win a championship, maybe the finals MVP itself. So people may feel that his cards have reached a ceiling, which I agree. For this season, it has gone to a ceiling, and we suddenly see a huge influx of SGA cards all coming to the market at the same time. Tons and tons of NTRPAs, the 99 versions, the FOTL versions, so many versions, and all sorts of gold prisms, and also parallels, and also so many. There's just lots and lots of SGA come in. Okay, and because of that, there's a huge influx, and the prices tend to trend a bit down. And I mentioned this in my last video. The time to sell SGA was not in the finals. It's actually sell it during the conference finals, because we have definitely a full expectation of the OKC Thunder to actually go to the finals. Okay, so right now, what we're seeing is lots and lots of SGA prices. Okay, yes, it's kind of a bit low, maybe a couple of percentage points lower than its peak. Okay, but again, if you similar to Anthony Edwards, if you're expecting SGA prices to have a massive correction to the level of what I mentioned for Halliburton, I think that's going to be incorrect. Okay, Moreover, the chances of OKC winning the championship, over the next 1 or 2 games is high. Okay. Do I think that there's more room to grow in this short period within the next couple of weeks? Don't think so. Definitely there's going to be a small little correction, okay, across the board. And if you have opportunity to buy some of the better cards at the corrected prices, even though it's going to be like 5, 7, or 10%, lower than its highest peak, I think something seriously worth considering, because I think the long-term hold, or in fact, if let's say you're talking about to go for another 12 months to the next season, I'm banking on OKC to repeat, for example, okay, is extremely high, and there is still room for growth for another run. Okay, as compared to Halliburton, his cards are going to get a correction. If somehow they pull it off and make another run, I think that Tyrese cards next year will be similar as perhaps where he is actually today, in my opinion. Okay, so if you're going to make any gains, obviously you got to catch the price at the lowest point so you can get incremental values. But for SGA, even though there's going to be some correction from its high points this year, I don't think that we have reached to the maximum. Where will it go? I'm not sure. Right, his NTRPA, true RPA, PSA 10 has gone up to 90K. So will it be a $200,000 card in the next 12 months? Probably not, right? I don't think that any modern card would, especially on 99 true RPA or not, would, fetch that kind of price. A Logo Man, yeah, for sure. Anything goes. Logo Man 101 out of 5, whatever. But that as a base, benchmark, 200,000 is a bit hard. But if you're saying about 120, 130, 140 maybe, okay, that's about 40% increase from the peak. Highly, highly possible. Highly possible, right? You just got to sweat out 12 months, for him to make another run. All right. So that's my assessment. It's been great this season. My off-season plans are, I spent the last couple of days just to figure out. I'm heading to the Macau show, and that presents a new challenge even for myself, which I'm going to do a whole video about it, right? And how is it different for me to attend a show compared to some of you guys, who just need to just pack a bag and, pack your cards and go to a show. But for me, running the business completely remote, all cards are, overseas in the vault. That's what I mentioned to you guys. How difficult is it to plan for a show, especially a big show like Macau? I'll talk about that in another video. All right. That's it for this video. Like and subscribe for my channel for more Courtside Investor videos. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Till the next one. Courtboss out.